Hello, friends, and welcome finally to your midweek edition of the Kings of Anglia podcast. I'm sorry you've had to wait for a little while. There was a fan social on Monday to tide you over, and now finally we can sit down and have a chat about all things Ipswich Town. I'm your host, Mark Heath, and with me, I'm very pleased to say two of the best Kings, certainly my favourite Kings. Starting, of course, with the man who was at Port Vale last night. He broke off from his half-term holiday to be there. I'm sure it matched all his expectations. Living the dream, Stuart Watson. You drove back from Port Vale this morning. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm not actually on holiday, am I? I've just had a couple of days off.
It's half term though,
this
isn't
week.
it? You are off for a couple of days this week. What?
I had Monday off, and I'm due to have Friday off. Other than that, business as usual.
That's what I like to hear. Unlike your work husband, Andy Warren, who, to be fair to him, did break off from his half-term holiday to go to Port Vale last night. And I'm very pleased to say, after again lengthy contract negotiations, we've secured. He's inked the contract, and I believe that today actually triggers another deal, Mike, because you hit an appearance number on the season, which means a huge contract uplift and a massive pay rise, which I'm sure the KOA Army will fully expect you and want to see you get. Well deserved. It's the big porker, Mike of House Bacon. How are you?
Thanks very much, Heathy. Yes, I am here, and you're absolutely correct. Of course, it isn't an appearance record. I won't say the number, but obviously you are correct. And financially, I'm committed, and that's a good thing. And I'm very pleased to be here because it's been difficult. It's been very difficult because there's been a lot of arguments and to and fro. But yes, delighted to be here with young Mr. Watson. And yes, it's fantastic. Looking forward to a nice little chat with you guys about all things Ipswich Town, EIO.
Excellent. It's great to have you with us, Mike. And at one point, we weren't expecting to have you with us at all for this next week or so because you've been in court.
I have been in court, yes.
They've finally caught up to you.
I have been in court, yes. It was. I told you that electric scooter was never going to be good for me. I thought 5 pints would be more than adequate. No, it's nothing to do with that at all. Now a little tad of jury service coming up soon. So yes, I'm not in court yet, and no cases are actually. I'm not seeing on any cases. Don't worry. I'm not going to start rattling off what's going on. But yes, a little jury service come my way. So yes, I am. But I'm here. So and. So I'm not involved in anything. So looking forward to it. But yes, I'd laugh if Watson came up in front of me. I'd love that. I'd absolutely love it.
Would you immediately put the black cap on?
Oh,
send him down. Don't need to hear anything.
Because apparently the judge they might ask you if you know anybody. Of course, I'd maintain I didn't know who he was, and I'd obviously have a Kieran McKenna mask on, so he can't see me either, Stu, and so he doesn't know it's me behind the Kieran McKenna mask. And then I sort of reveal it at the end and say guilty.
As a published author, Mike, and no doubt someone is working on your next few novels. Does this experience is that likely to be something you can draw on at some point?
Well, I think I may be able to. Heath has a very good point because I think the courtroom dramas are my thing. As I think if people on here have heard before, I'm very much a Tom Cruise, a Few Good Men type characters. That's me all over. So I'm just where I want to be. Really, this is like sort of a dream. My dream's coming true for me. I don't know. It's great. I'm just looking forward to it.
Do you know if your head juror? Yeah, has that been decided?
Well, of course I will be. I mean, I'm not. It hasn't been decided yet, no. But I mean, I'm bound to be, aren't I? Yes, I'm bound to be. I mean, just look. I mean, I've got head juror written all over me, haven't I? Foreman, head juror, team maker, everything. I'll get right involved. And
of course, we learnt a few shows ago, back in the summer, I think it was now, that if you were to have your time again, you would be an American-style lawyer in Los Angeles or something. Better Call Saul. Defending the people who can't defend themselves. That'd be very much the way you see yourself, isn't it?
Absolutely. On very big bucks as well, of course, Heath. I mean,
massive, huge
bucks. I mean, far bigger than you're paying me to be on here, quite frankly. But I mean, I don't mind being on here. It's lovely. But yes, that would be a courtroom drama in America. That's fantastic.
Excellent. Well then, friends, it's great to have you with us. You mentioned drama there, Mike, which is a lovely segue into the drama at Vale Park last night. A peek behind the curtain, friends. We operated under new deadlines for the first time last night, which means that, well, the Star deadline is 7:30, so we've got no hope of getting anything in the Star. And the Anglian deadline is 9:45, which was interesting last night because the game hadn't finished by 9:45. I was very happy when it was 2-0. I thought, this is going to be a bit of a stroll. That makes things easier. And then it was 2-2. Town were top of the table for a while. Then Freddie scored. I wrote about 4 different intros in the space of 15 minutes. And finally, it all came to fruition, and Town got the win. It was dramatic.
Why are you writing intros? And the final goal of this game went in the what, 51st minute?
Yeah,
You've gone early there with intros.
Friend, I was writing intros at half time. That's how tight these deadlines are. I was writing an old school runner, and trust me, they wanted to send pages when the game was still being played. So that was an entertaining conversation as well. Anyway, we all got through it. It happened. Ipswich Town got the win in a dramatic game. There's a lot to talk about, and I want to start this little segment with a very big positive, friends, and that is this.
I loved it. I just seen a kid who, on his debut for the club, been here since he's 7 years old, and I thought he ran himself into the ground. I thought, forget about the goal, forget about the fantastic assist for Freddie. I just seen a kid who just absolutely rinsed everything he had of himself for the football club to help us get a win. So I loved his performance. Loved to see the fans giving him the plaudits at the end, and the players doing the same when he got back to the dressing room.
There we go then, Stewie. This is the start for 10. Roy of the Rovers stuff. What a story. Cameron Humphreys, first league start, scores a banger of a goal and sets up another one as Town win 3-2 in a back and forth thriller. Kick us off. Your thoughts?
Yeah, delighted for him. It was that the scenes at the end reminded me of just a few weeks ago with how popular Kyle Edwards was after getting the 2 goals against Cambridge, and you could see how much his teammates were delighted for him and how much it meant to the supporters as well. And it was exactly the same with Cameron Humphreys last night. We've known for a little while that Ipswich have got a talented young player on their hands in Cameron Humphreys. Has never looked out of place at all, and he's been parachuted in for cup games, got a little taste of league action in more difficult circumstances off the bench last year. But this was his first start in the league, and yeah, once again didn't look out of place at all. He goal, assist, but his general performance I thought was pretty good. Yeah, I think everyone will have seen the goal by now. The sweetest of left-footed strikes. They're always sweeter off the left foot. I don't know why that is, but he won't have caught many that cleanly. Fizzed through the crowd into the bottom corner, and the assist was as impressive, if not more impressive, actually. If you watch when Kyle Edwards receives the ball just over the halfway line, Cameron Humphreys is in his own half. And watch him, he sets off immediately. He sees the picture. He sees a huge gaping hole in front of him, and he sets off and he sprints. And on that underlap, he gets the ball and pulls it across for what proved to be the winner. So, yeah, an impressive performance from him, and great scenes at the end with the Ipswich fans chanting his name and the players all sort of mobbing him. It was really nice.
What that must feel like as an 18-year-old boy to do that in a game, and then have fans chanting your name, your boyhood club. He's been there since 7 years old. Really is kind of stuff out of a film. Something that Mike Bacon might write, in fact. And Mike Bacon, we were having a chat this morning. You were saying how much it was apt that on the week that Town opened the George Burley bar at Portman Road, how much someone like Burley would have enjoyed Cameron Humphreys coming to the fore last night.
Well, I did hear. Yeah, absolutely right. I'd just like to say how great it is but I went past Burley's bar actually on was it Monday? I think on my way to court, funnily enough. And yeah, it's great, isn't it? It looks really nice. I mean, I don't know if you've seen it. Actually seen it. You know, it's a nice picture of George up there, and fully deserved. People forget what great legend George Burley done for this football club as a player and a manager. But yeah, going back to what you're saying about George Burley, of course, his love of youth players is extraordinary. I mean, the ones he brought on through Ipswich Town, through Kieran and Richard Wright, James Scowcroft, the Darren Ambrose of this world, you know, and I was doing a little bit of research. Will Sahar at Palace, he gave his debut to. Obviously, Lallana and Gareth Bale down at Southampton as kids. George was their manager. He would have loved to have seen Cameron Humphreys, an 18-year-old, get his chance. And look, it's Kieran McKenna who gave me a chance, not George Burley, obviously, but George would have been absolutely delighted. Kieran McKenna, fantastic. Well done for him. That's what Ipswich is all about, and has been for years, about bringing young players through. In the same week that I sat and watched Flynn Downs actually play for West Ham in the it was the Champions League? No, not Champions League. In the in the Premier League. Yeah, mate, he's playing in the Premier League this week. Another young Ipswich player but we've got Cameron Humphreys to ourselves at the moment. Let's hope it keeps that way.
Yeah, much. keep him under wraps for a while. Don't wish to blow my own trumpet, boys. You know I'm very shy and retiring, but I do believe I picked Cameron Humphreys as the surprise package of the season. Sold that one away.
I don't remember that, to be honest. But
well, it's committed to print and also audio. I nailed that. Also said, of course, Town will be outside the top half of the table. That's looking pretty good at the moment. Stewie, Cameron Humphreys came in last night because Sam Morsey and Lee Evans were injured. He played alongside Dominic Ball. How did Ball look in midfield?
Solid. I thought there was a few moments of rust. Understandably, this is his I think first league start for Ipswich as well. He's obviously had to bide his time with Morsey and Evans being so consistent and nailed on during the opening weeks of the season. But I thought he came in and did really well. I thought he allowed, when we talk about what Cameron Humphreys did, I think Dominic Ball's presence allowed him to do that. If you look at the first goal and the third goal, Dominic Ball is heavily involved in the build-up for both of those. Really good team goals through the thirds where Dominic Ball was given the ball, gives it back, and was just involved in some nice little triangles and neat bits of play. What I like about him is that he's very positive. When he gets the ball, he looks to play forwards. Kieran McKenna talked about him picking up the patterns of play that they work on in training and knowing who to give the ball to and when, and finding the likes of Edwards and Chaplin in the little pockets off the strikers. So it's the reason why they went out and signed someone like Dominic Ball last season. When Morsey got suspended or when Evans got injured, we talked about the Ipswich midfield downgrading a little bit and lacking something. They're just better equipped now for nights like last night. I don't think you can underestimate Ipswich coming through that game without probably their two best performers, certainly their two most consistent performers at the start of this season. Morsey, the beating heart of this team, the captain, to come through that game with 3 points in those circumstances makes it all the more impressive, I think.
I want to deal with positives and then negatives and then conversations around the game. So let's carry on with the positives, Stu. Cameron Humphreys undoubtedly the big positive. Another big positive, though, certain Freddie Ladapo, often little maligned so far this season. Bagged 2 last night, was in the right place at the right time. It's exactly what you want to see from a striker. What do you make of him last night?
Yeah, really pleased for him to get his 2 goals. There's been an increasing amount of noise, as I guess naturally there is, about a new striker that doesn't necessarily hit the ground running in terms of goals. I've kind of always been in the camp that his performances have been, I'm not going over the top. Freddie Ladapo has not set the world alight since coming to Ipswich Town, but I don't think he's been as bad as some have made out. I think some people get a bit blinkered by goals at times. And he's on to 6 now, which is, sneaked him up onto joint top goal scorer alongside Chaplin and Harness. But I think we forget that he's not only changing club and moved to a different town, and which comes with it a certain amount of adaptation. A lot of Ipswich's players that are coming good this season went through a bit of a rough transitional patch themselves at the start of last season. But he's changed a whole completely new style of play. At Rotherham, he was often part of a front 2. It was a lot more direct. He's come into Ipswich completely different. And it's probably taken him a little bit of time. And McKenna admitted that afterwards, that we've been working on him being a bit more of a team player, was the sort of intimation, how he can sort of link up with his teammates a little bit more. Maybe he's got a bit fixated. He talked, I think, when Andy interviewed him after the Portsmouth game, where he talked about sleepless nights and not scoring enough goals, and maybe thought a bit too much about his individual game. And McKenna's pulled him to one side and gone, you're contributing to the team. It's not just about goals. It's about occupying centre halves. It's about creating space for others. And I think at times he has done that. So I was pleased for him to get the 2 goals last night. 2 good poachers finishes. Just dampens a little bit of that sort of noise around, we haven't got a 20-goal a season striker. We need to go all out in January and sign another striker and stuff like that. So, yeah, big night for him. A little bit overshadowed, I guess, by the Cameron Humphreys story. But, yeah, I'm pleased for Freddie.
The other thing you mentioned, obviously, changing where he lives and new teammates, new team, new way of playing. He also had his first kid in the summer, didn't he? And that can't be underestimated in terms of that would have certainly caused him sleepless nights, as you boys both know. Mike, where do you stand on the Ladapo thing? Because it's there seems to be two very firm camps. One, basically what Stu says, that he works really hard for the team. It doesn't really matter if he's not scoring every single game. The other one, which is, well, he's not scoring enough goals. He's useless. We need to get someone else in January.
I think I agree with Stu. What Stuart said, it takes a little time to settle in, and I think Freddie has taken a little time to settle in. But what I liked last night mostly, great. Both his goals were just poachers' goals, weren't they? They were just both classic centre forward goals, Gary Lineker type goals in the 6-yard box, poaching, sniffing around there. That will have given him huge confidence. I don't think there's any need to go bonkers in January, splashing money on a striker. I mean, you could upset an apple cart here. I mean, things are going quite nicely. You know, you've got people coming into form. You've got someone like Freddie's now. That's going to give him a huge boost, those 2 goals. Not because they didn't have to be 30-yard strikes. They were just classic poachers' goals. And that's the sort of thing you want from your striker. Let's juicy. He's on 6 now. I mean, yeah, it'd be great if he was on 12, but he's on 6. And he's not playing every game. He's not starting every match. So he's got to that point without starting every game. I think Kieran McKenna's got this balance quite nice with strikers, and that front four we know all the time keeps chopping and changing. And look, it's going along nicely. If you suddenly bring in, you bring in a £40 million strike, so fantastic. That's not gonna happen, is it? So it's only gonna be somebody else. And if it's somebody else on the same sort of similar level, what are you going to upset things? Because things seem to be going okay. And for Freddie last night, as Stu said, he works hard for the team, does a lot of other things as well. He hasn't set the world alight. But those 2 goals could be very crucial for kickstarting his season.
Great movement for the first goal, wasn't it? Brilliant build up. Wonderful ball from Leif Davis, who I thought again had a really good game. But the movement, if you watch Freddie in the box, is a little feints to go one way, then moves and gets between 2 centre halves. Nice finish on the stretch. Right place at the right time. Bit of fortune with the way the ball sort of ricocheted to him for the winner. But he'll be feeling a lot better about himself. Whatever you say about strikers, and they all talk about contributing to the team, they pride themselves on goals, and he'll be feeling better about that. I mean, he had a stinker off the bench against Derby in the previous game. I thought he came on and looked way off it, like he was not happy having not started the game. And you met Freddie in pre-season, Mark, when you were doing the third kit launch, and he's a very smiley, happy, positive character when you meet him, by all accounts. But I wonder if he's a bit of a, he's an emotional character, listening to some of his quotes, and he might be a little bit up and down with how things go. And I think Kieran McKenna is going to be a really good calming influence on him that allows him to kind of just keep a bit of perspective at times. I noticed that Kieran went and gave him a big arm around the shoulder after the game last night. And in his post-match interview, there was a lot of questions about Cameron Humphreys, understandably, and no one really asked him about Freddie Ladapo. It was only sort of when he got to the latter stages of, he'd done various interviews with the club, with the radio, and then it was only when sort of I came along, I said, big night for Freddie as well, wasn't it? Let's not forget he's got a couple of goals, and he sort of has an appreciative smile and nod there, as if to say, yeah, it was a big night for Freddie, actually. So yeah, I'm pleased for him, and I'm kind of, he's one that I'm sort of willing to do well.
2 big positives then: Humphreys, Ladapo. You mentioned Davis as well, Stu. Is there any other positives you want to highlight before we move on to a chat around maybe the things that weren't quite so good?
Who else do we need to talk about? I thought Edwards again was quite lively and direct, and did some nice things. And Davis started the game a little bit troubled. A lot of Port Vale's threat came down the right-hand side, and a lot of crosses came into the box from there. But he grew and grew into the game, and yeah, he looks looking a real player, isn't he, Leif Davis? Just a real moment of quality with the assist for the first goal. He had a hand in the second, it was his corner for the second, was involved in the build-up play, I think, for the third as well. So yeah, have to give him a mention. But no, I think we've covered a lot of the positives there. I think my ultimate reflection on last night is, I wouldn't say again it was a vintage Ipswich Town performance, but in the circumstances of going to a Port Vale team who I thought were really impressive, actually. I've got a lot of credit for Port Vale. For the way they played. They didn't, this wasn't an anti-football team. They looked to mix it with Ipswich Town. They made it a really competitive game from the first to the last minute. I thought they were quite unfortunate to go 2-0 down. I thought they'd started the better side. Competed. Ellis Harrison, former Ipswich player, was a real handful up front. So for Ipswich to kind of come through that test, this is another really good test that they've come through with players missing, away from home. Pitch wasn't the best. These are the sort of games that you look back on come sort of April, May as being really, really important ones that you come through.
Yeah, that's a positive in itself, isn't it, Mike? A lot of people who watch the game day after the game, and particularly after games like this, the same thing is said by quite a few fans, which is we wouldn't have won that last season. We'd have lost it or drawn it. And Town going 2-0 up and then being pegged back to 2-2. In previous seasons, they may have fallen apart at that point. They weren't the most resilient. And yet we've seen they can win games in a variety of different ways so far this season. Just even contrasting the Derby win and last night in the last few days, two very different types of games, very different types of wins. And that's hugely positive, isn't it? To be able to have that in your locker, that you can win games any different number of ways.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's very easy you can easily lose points and lose games to teams you shouldn't be losing to. And that's what, I mean, what Town now won at Morecambe, they've won at Forest Green, they've won at Burton, they've won at Port Vale. These are the games they've been slipping up badly in over the last 2 or 3 years. And to me, losing at Plymouth is a huge disappointment. But it's not, to me, it's even not the end of the world. You start dropping points at the likes of Port Vale and at Morecambe and at Forest Green. These are points you don't get back. These are points you don't get back because you'd be expected to beat them at home.
Didn't beat a single one of the promoted teams last season, did they? In eight attempts, didn't win a single one of them. And as you say, they've done that. You know, Forest Green, Port Vale. I don't know I can't remember if there's anyone else on that list from last season who came up, but yeah, you're right.
No, and I think the thing is also, as you say, you got. I mean, Derby. I quite enjoyed the Derby game. I thought Town played quite well against Derby. There's a sort of a mixed sort of reaction to that game. But I thought that was a good performance against a decent Derby side. I mean, I know Derby haven't really set the world alight yet with Paul Ward, but you watch the second half of their season, I bet they do, and that's going to be a good result for us. And so I think overall, yeah, I mean, there are different ways to win. The Cambridge match, you know, pummeling Cambridge for so long before eventually getting that breakthrough. You know, then obviously last night at Port Vale, getting back to 2-2 after being, after being 2-0 up, but still coming through again. I must admit, when it got to 2-2, I don't know how many people were sitting there thinking, oh, oh dear, well, never mind. You know, it happened at Sheffield Wednesday, but Sheffield Wednesday a little bit of a bigger side than Port Vale. But that happened last night, but they didn't, did it? At the end of the day, it didn't. And Ipswich are finding ways to win matches this season, which they've struggled. Yeah, they have. They've struggled at times to win some of these games. They've drawn them, but they've struggled to win them. You think of Cheltenham away, Cambridge away last season. You know, they're just that's just two off the top of my head. And so very positive. I think it's terrific to win at Port Vale. It's not the easiest place to go on a Tuesday night. I would have thought, and not that I went, so it didn't really worry me. But I mean, Stewie went, and I was still coming out of courtroom. So no, I wasn't. Really. But no, so yeah, terrific. Very pleased. Very good 3 points that. Following on from the Derby match, which I thought was excellent as well. 6 points out of 6 there. Top stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously loads of positives. They got the win. Where they are in the league, the gap now down to 7th is 14 points. It's 6th to 3rd. I mean, these are really good things to see. But Stu, we can't talk about the game last night without talking about some negatives. And we've spoken in recent pods about the fact that Town have started conceding goals. And last night, the goals they conceded were pretty poor. So both you and Hutchie have said separately that you weren't really concerned about conceding goals and defensive and that kind of thing. But how do you feel after last night?
Bit more relaxed about it this morning, having kind of reflected on it and watched the goals back than I was last night. The first goal in particular was really poor. It was a catalogue of errors. Just people not winning challenges, not winning headers. And then you could break that down all the way through. I think Burns misses, doesn't win a first header. Danassian isn't quick enough out to stop the cross. Davis in particular is flat-footed at the back post when the guy comes in to win the back post header. Then Ball and Wolfenden sort of both misjudged the flight of the ball. And then I thought Burns should have done more to block it. He kind of got himself there but turned his back. It was a bit of a flaky attempt at a block. So all in all, that was a pretty poor goal to concede. The second one you can talk about. Immediately my thoughts was a bit slack from Wolfenden again. Ipswich sort of getting caught playing out of the back. But then having watched back goals 1 and 3 that Ipswich scored, come from playing out the back, come from defenders lending it to a midfielder, getting it back, creating angles of attack. So you kind of maybe have to accept a bit of the rough with the smooth on that one. On that occasion, they got themselves in a bit of a muddle, conceded a corner, and then probably didn't defend it that well. Ball goes to try and win the near post header, and maybe wasn't his to go and win. And then it's actually, I've praised a lot of praise towards Freddie Ladapo in this so far, but he loses his man there. He doesn't show the desire to go with his runner, the guy who scores, Nathan Smith. So yes, they'll be quick to pick the bones out of that one, I think, Ipswich Town. But still not too worried about that. I still maintain that the goals conceded in the previous two games, Morecambe and Lincoln, were kind of freakish goals. I don't think there's any kind of structural issues there from a defensive point of view. If you look at the McKenna era as a whole, it's still a ridiculous number of clean sheets. It's still a ridiculously low number of chances conceded per game. Walton is quiet for long spells in matches, and not to say it needs to be completely brushed under the carpet, but it's not ringing any major alarm bells still for me at this stage.
Is there an argument? And one of the questions we've had, we're going to do mailbag in a minute, but we might as well do this now from our old friend Bono. So is there an argument to start talking about Richard Keogh being involved from the start? You've spoken in glowing terms about Keogh already this season, Stu. Wolfenden has the kind of tendency to be a bit lackadaisical sometimes. We've seen elements of that. And Edmonton has been up and down. Is there any argument that Keogh could maybe come in and bring some leadership, some experience, and some kind of more stability to that back line?
Maybe, yeah. Again, last night, you look at Richard Keogh and the post-match celebrations, he was enjoying it as much as anybody there. And I mean, that's the strength, the biggest strength of this Ipswich Town team at the moment is their unity, is their togetherness. You can just feel that this is a special group that's really bonded. And even the players that are out of the team are loving it. If you looked at the celebrations, Wes Burns' celebrations when he scored against Derby, who was the first person there to scoop him up was Connor Chaplin, who could have been really down in the dumps that he wasn't selected for a big game against Derby on Sky Friday night. But, they genuinely are rooting for each other, whether they're in and out of the team. So to answer your question about Keogh, I thought last night might be the sort of game that we'd start to see sort of Keogh rotated in for, that we might start to see a bit more of a rotation of the back line in the same way we have seen the front line for sort of those more tricky away games, especially with someone like Ellis Harrison, who's a bit of a wily wind-up merchant who, puts himself about. They brought him on for the latter stages, but, let's not focus too much on Wolfenden's weaknesses, because he's got a hell of a lot of strengths as well. And, there's plenty of times that he coolly brings it out and retains possession. And Edmondson is one who can stride out from the back. He was involved in sort of bringing the ball out with his feet for one of the goals as well. Both are attributes that Keogh maybe isn't sort of top of his forte, but it's just great that they've got these options, really. That there'll come a point possibly where someone is unavailable through suspension and injury, and much like Dominic Ball stepped in last night, Richard Keogh is going to be ready to hit the ground running, hopefully.
We saw the phantom return as well, didn't we, last night? Cameron Burgess, incredible. Mike, have you got any thoughts on that?
That's mad, isn't it?
It's crazy.
30 odd days on from having facial reconstruction, 30 odd screws put in his face.
And in a situation where
you're playing a competitive game of football,
you're being brought on essentially to head the ball with your broken face. Anyway, that's remarkable. Mike, you are a little bit younger than Richard Keogh. Have you got any feelings around that? Do you think there's an argument that Keogh should be considered now for a starting point?
Yeah, I'm sure McKenna's considering it. I mean, I think Keogh's a great signing. I think he's an absolutely terrific sign. When he was signed, I wasn't really quite sure. I thought, oh yeah, but you're right, Stu. What you're saying, seeing his reaction after the game, he's got Cameron Humphreys around Cameron's neck, giving him a pat on the head and cheering him. Keogh is really taken to this team, and I bet he's a massive figure in that dressing room. Absolute massive figure on the bench he's not starting on the bench or wherever he is. Look, I like Luke Wolfenden. I think we have to remember Luke Wolfenden, this time not so long ago, was on the verge of had enough of this football club, and here he is now. I like the way he plays. It's the way McKenna wants to play out from the back. Wolverton is your classic John Stones type out from the back player, and John Stones makes mistakes not all the time, unfair, but he makes mistakes. But if you're what you see is what you get with Wolverton. He's strong. He's getting bigger and stronger. He's a tall lad. He's 6 foot, God knows what. He's a lot taller than me even. And I mean, so he's a big, strong lad. I mean, he's just becoming a better and better player. And I think McKenna will stick. But I'm not saying I wouldn't have Keown in for an odd game here or there when the time arises, because I think, but I wouldn't just chop and change it. They obviously dropped Wolverton for, where was the game at? Was it Morecambe?
Yeah.
At Morecambe, so he missed that. But he's come straight back in. And as Stuart's good point, Stuart, what you make there, look at the goals. Where do they start from? We don't just hoof it up the field, and get a flick on and someone runs behind and taps it in. These goals start from the back, and that's what McKenna wants. Just watch the Premier League sides, watch the Manchester Cities of this world play football, and remember where McKenna comes from. Where he comes from, where all his football's been watched and coached. It's not from the goalkeeper booting up to Wes Burns to flick, or to Ladapo to flick on. It's coming from the back, trying to get it through the midfield, through the lines, or etc. And Wolverton, I think, is a huge part of that. But Keown is just great to have. It's just a good squad. I mean, it's just I just get a feeling with this team that everyone knows where they are, right? There's no starting 11, apart from Christian Walton, probably. But overall, I don't think there's an absolute out-and-out, without fail, Morsey and Walton starting 11. So many people can chop and change. It doesn't change that much, but it changes enough. And I think everyone feels good about that. And I think that's part of the success, really.
Right, one more debate coming out of this game then, Stewie, and it is around that. We know that starting 11 is going to change over the next few games, because although Sam Morsey is going to be back, Lee Evans, his running mate, it sounds like he's going to be out for a while, medial ligament damage to his knee, which, having twice done my MCL, I can tell you is not a pleasant thing to have. That's all about stability in the knee. And when you've got issues with that, especially with football, with so much twisting and turning, it takes away from the confidence in your ability to do that. So Dominic Ball and Cameron Humphreys came in last night. Humphreys clearly was the headline star. Ball was solid. Do you think Ball will be the man going forward, though, to play alongside Morsey? Is he the obvious choice just because he's got that extra experience? He's got the pedigree playing in the Championship, and he's a bit physically larger as well?
Yes, I think he will definitely start on Saturday at Charlton. Kieran McKenna essentially confirmed that after the game, that these are the moments that we signed Dominic Ball to be ready for. That I loved Cameron Humphreys last night. I think he's got a huge future in the game. I think he can go as far as he wants. But from a practicality viewpoint, Dominic Ball has been a Championship regular for the last 3 seasons. I think we shouldn't suddenly overlook that. Yes, I can see why it always feels a bit harsh on the young lad is always the easy option. There's always a feeling that it's an easy option when you've got 19 players to pick for your squad. I will leave Cameron Humphreys as the 19th man. When it's someone needs to drop out the team now, it will be Cameron Humphreys because that's the easy option. But he is still learning, and I think he knows that as well. He's someone that's got a desire to learn and want to be better. The reason he's so sort of popular with McKenna and the players is that he's a humble young man, that he's had a little bit of early hype in his career. He's had someone like Kieran Dyer calling him the second best midfielder at the club. Some will have got well carried away with that and forgotten what's got them to this point. From everything we hear, Cameron Humphreys won't be one of those. He's pushed himself right into the picture now, but I don't suddenly think he's going to start sort of playing week in, week out. He's a different probably type of player to the Ball, when Morsey will come back in. With Morsey's role now being that sort of a bit more licensed to be box to box and break forward and whatnot, Ball might be the better insurance policy for Sam Morsey to do that. But yeah, that's to take nothing away from Cameron Humphreys last night, but I do think it will be Ball that will come in now for Evans over the next few weeks. And
the other name to throw into that mix, of course, is Panuche Kamara. Do you get any sense as to how close he is? We've seen him play in the EFL Trophy. He's played for the under-21s. Is he anywhere near? Do you think he was on the bench last night, wasn't he?
I think that's been a bit of needs must. I think he's been brought back a lot quicker than they would have wanted. McKenna said he wasn't anywhere near ready for that that trophy game at Cambridge, but it was too good an opportunity just to get a few minutes in his legs, given that was an essential dead rubber. And then last night, the 18 players in that squad were the only 18 players at McKenna's disposal. I know when he talks about being fully stretched, I'm sure there'll be some other League One managers having a bit of a wry smile and getting their tiny violins out. But, you know, with Vincent Young joining the likes of Greg Lee, Ahadmi, and others, Sonny Aluko, Shawnee Aluko, old habits die hard. You know, those players sort of injured. Lee Evans now, they are down to sort of an 18. So, yeah, Humphreys has got a role to play, certainly in this match day squad over the next few weeks. Maybe not as a regular starter, but he's in that 18 now.
Excellent. Anything else to mention from last night? Any other notes to you? I think we've given that a good half-hour chat, and I want to get to a mailbag. You got anything else to mention?
No.
Excellent. Let's move on to mailbag. We know when Hutchie's here, we don't do the song because we simply can't match up. So I'm going to dive straight in with a question from Mike Bacon. This is particularly for you, I'd imagine, Mike, from Dawn Portman, who says, she's talking about Town and Ipswich Speedway, who actually rode on Monday night, incredibly. Which rider do you think would make the best footballer, and vice versa, Mike? There is no one better placed on planet Earth to answer this question. So Speedway riders are insane. The risk they take for the relative rewards is crazy. They're double hard, triple hard nails. I mean, we talk about Cameron Burgess being hard. Speedway rider broke his face. He'd get straight back on the bike and ride the next heat. So who would make the best rider, do you think, in the Ipswich Town squad, and vice versa, racer making player in the Town squad?
Okay, now a lot of our Ipswich Town fans here listen to this because it's obviously an Ipswich Town podcast, not an Ipswich Speedway podcast. But you may not, or you may well have, or you may not have heard of Jason Doyle. Now, Jason Doyle is the Ipswich Witches #1 and former world champion. He's an Aussie. I think he's about 35, 36, and he is as hard as the hardest nail you have ever seen, that you've ever picked up and tried to bang into your fence. This guy is so tough. I've seen him catapult over fences, shake himself down, pick himself up and win the rerun. He is as hard as nails. He would be your ultimate centre half at Portman Road. I'm not saying there'd be a lot of flair, but there wouldn't be any strikers stroll past Jason Doyle. I don't know how fast he is. He's fast on a bike, obviously, but I don't know how fast he is actually in pace-wise on a football pitch. But I wouldn't want to be either in a centre midfielder up against him or a striker up against him at centre half. Jason Doyle, Speedway, Ipswich Witches #1 will get in the Ipswich Town team easily. And as regards Ipswich Town, now, is there a Speedway rider among them? I'm telling you, there is. I'm telling you, there's a Speedway rider right there, right in that. Can
I guess?
Go.
Well, obviously, you need to be quite small, don't you, to be a Speedway rider? So, although Burgess has obviously got facial fractures in his double hard, I can't see him doing too much on a bike. So, I'm going to say Connor Chaplin.
You're absolutely right. Connor Chaplin is spot on, Heathy. Connor Chaplin is the ultimate Speedway rider. He's not big. It's no good being too big and chunky and all hard, but he's a tough little character, and he's got great balance. He's got great balance on the football pitch. So he'll have great balance on a Speedway bike. I'd love to see Connor Chaplin have a go on a spear, but I reckon he'd be absolutely fantastic, and he'd have wonderful balance. He's got good reaction. You watch him playing on the pitch. He's always moving quickly, so he'd have good reactions at the Speedway, at the tapes. The tapes would go up. Off they go. Chaplin at the first bend. Bob's your uncle.
Do you know who'd be the worst?
You're going to tell me.
Sam Morsey, because he wouldn't be able to grip the handlebars, would he? Just runs with his hands splayed. You ever watched the Sam Morsey jazz hands when he runs?
I've not, but I will do now.
Look out for it.
This is a total digression, but I would argue that Speedway riders, pound for pound, in the world of sport, are probably the toughest single athletes you could find. Is there any other contenders you can think for that, Mike?
Well, I've been watching Speedway a long time, and I've seen some pretty horrendous. I mean, I've seen riders dislocate their shoulders and go in the rerun after they've been popped back in again, and all this sort of stuff. I mean, I've seen some horrendous things. I mean, they only brought the concussion thing in about 6 months ago. I mean, riders would go in the rerun with a concussion, let alone be out for a week. There aren't many sports tougher than speed because the bikes have no brakes, and the crashes are just phenomenal. And yeah, do you
know the only thing I've seen that's more mental than Speedway is Speedway on ice. They've gone They've gone, let's take this sport, which is incredibly dangerous as it is, no brakes on the bikes, riding into big walls at speed. Let's put that on ice.
Have you seen the spikes? Have you seen the spikes in the wheels? The spikes are about 2 inches long in the wheels. So if they come off, they then go spiking into each other. But yeah,
it's absolutely mental, and they deserve every single penny they get paid. Those Speedway boys. Right then, question for you, Stu, from friend of the show number 1, DJ Darryl Jones in Jacksonville. You just returned. He says it's a cold Tuesday night in Stoke. The classic football cliche. As daunting as advertised.
I think somebody has already replied to Darryl to say, actually, I think you'll find it's Burslem, which is correct. There was an element of sort of Stoke, Tony Pulis Stoke about Port Vale, direct at times. Don't want to sort of be too disingenuous to their performance, because I thought they were good and competitive and tried to take the game. But yeah, there was an element of a few long throws into the box and a bit of direct play, and Ellis Harrison putting himself up front a little bit. So yeah, that is probably the equivalent of Ipswich coming through their cold Tuesday night in Stoke test in current day League One terms.
And of course, two teams with two of the biggest pop legends on the planet, who are their biggest supporters. Ed Sheeran versus Robbie Williams.
A lot of Robbie. We had a lot of Robbie on the PA last night.
Does Robbie Williams still count as a thing? He's yesterday's man, isn't he?
Well, a little bit, Heath. Come on. I mean, it's like saying Elvis Presley's yesterday's man. I mean, he's still a legend, isn't he? You can't just because he's not number 1 in the charts.
Put your Grammys on the table. Let's see how many Sheeran's got compared to Williams, shall we?
We love Ed Sheeran far more than Robbie Williams. Of course we do. But I mean, it's just, and if there was a fight, I don't know who'd win. But I mean, what I'm saying is, it's, that must have been, it's a pop classic matchup last night.
Excellent. I'm going to go straight to this next question because it's a perfect segue. Matty Willis wants to know, if you were all in a band together, who's playing what, including Andy and Ross? So I think we've done something similar before, the KOA pop band. We decided, Mike, you'd definitely be the front man in your leather trousers. I'd be playing some sort of triangle because I have no musical talent whatsoever, and jumping around a bit like Bez. Stu, what do you fancy?
I had Mike down as the Bez character here, actually. Just lots of energy and some maracas, but I'm happy.
I reckon Mike's probably got a much better voice than I have as well. Ross would surely be the obvious choice for a Bez character if there is one.
True.
What do you fancy playing, Stu?
We're struggling here. We can't all be Bez. There's not much of a band here, is there? I can see Andy on bass. Just
absolutely,
very cool in the background. The Iceman, just jamming.
Just playing 2 chords over and over.
I'll do a bit of lead guitar. I mean, I'll have to learn guitar first, but that's fine.
Mike, have you ever been in a band? You strike me as someone who might have been in a band in your misspent youth.
Well, I did. Yes, I did. I did spend a little time in a band. I played the drums. Would you believe? I was actually yes. You see,
you have to be the drummer. You're the guy from the Muppets. Is just going mental.
Not the guy from the Muppets. I did used to go a bit crazy, because they weren't my drums. They're my friends' drums. So I used to bang them like crazy. I did go a bit mad. I must be honest. I'm not saying I was very good at it, but we weren't really a band. It was more sort of a collection of sort of people making a lot of noise. We had a guy who did do the maracas. He just sort of jumped around to the maracas, but we never recorded anything.
What's the band called?
I'm going to say, did you have a name?
It was called The Hairy Thing Under the Carpet. It was a group. It was a group that we've just formed. It was just around about sixth form.
Mike, incredible thinking on your feet there, because that story is complete nonsense, clearly, and you've just come up with the name just like that. Fantastic.
Fantasy world.
Yeah. Right then, where are we? Question
Mike
for you.
Mike would do a really long solo, like a uncomfortably long drum solo, where like, is he finished yet? It's like 3 minutes.
Spotlight purely on Bacon as he's just smashing the drums. Kevin Quinton, Stewie, wants to know, who are the top 3 opposition teams that played Town so far this season? Says, I thought Port Vale played really well last night. So obviously you'd imagine Plymouth have to be in there because
Plymouth were number 1 comfortably. Yep. Weirdly, Burton probably have been up there in terms of sort of top tests, I would say. I thought that was a game that could easily have gone the other way for Ipswich. Really under the cosh in the early stages of that match. Just looking through the rest of the The fixtures so far. Lincoln, I guess, the fact that it was the other defeat and for different reasons, they were just very, very difficult to break down, very organised. You look at where the wins have come from, that's 6 wins away from home now, which is one shy of last season's final tally, 7 wins away from home in the whole of last season. Sometimes I think some of the toughest games this season are going to be the home games against these bottom half sides, Cambridge, Lincoln, where teams come to Portman Road with no real ambition and set up to sort of defend and maybe nick something on the counter. I think those games might be a little bit tougher than going to somewhere than some of these away games where teams feel that they have to at least try and sort of give Ipswich a bit of a game.
Right, let's do a few more. Dinsdale, Mike, this is one you can both answer. Says Davis, best signing of the summer. When I rank them, I've had Marcus Harness at the top, but I routinely get these things wrong. And of course, that was after his red hot goal scoring start. You boys, Stewie and Andy, have both been singing Davis's praises pretty consistently. Where would you rank him, Mike, in terms of the best signings of the summer?
Well, I must admit, I went to Forest Green at the start of the season. He didn't really set the world alight much there, and in fact, he had quite a very I wouldn't say unimpressive, but let's say just a very quiet start to his life as an Ipswich Town player. But I tell you what, the last 3 or 4 weeks, last month, he has really come on. And you're going back to this settling in period again. You see that Stuart mentioned about Ladapo. You see, you're going back to that again. He's come from, he's come from Leeds. It's a big move for him. All the money and stuff. He is really settling. We've been blessed with great left backs over the last, decade. And I mean, and now you're going to have Davis is going to be up there. I think he's going to be. You just tell his confidence, the runs, the moves, the working in the passing inside, working with people. I think he's going to end up by the end of this season. We're going to look back at him as being the summer signing.
He's the best signing, no doubt about it. Some engine on him as well, isn't he? I think we talked about it looking more like a back 4 than a back 3, I think, but he gets up and down all day long. And I thought when the game got a bit gritty last night and when they were seeing that out at 3-2, he made a string of really vital interceptions. One other thing I liked about the game last night was a little bit of game nous from Ipswich towards the latter stages. We've seen Ipswich sort of frustrated by a bit of time wasting and a bit of game management, and they did, nothing too over the top, nothing that crossed the line for me, but they just knew how to slow the game down last night. Davis, didn't catch a ball that came to him when it was time for a throw in and got heaps off of the Port Vale fans, and they knew how to take the sting out of any late Port Vale momentum last night. I like that.
Is that part of the Stuart Watson dark arts?
Yeah, it's part of the game. I think there's definitely a line there that can be crossed, and some certainly do take it too far. But sometimes it's just being a bit smart when to slow it down. Ipswich are clearly coached to keep the ball in play as long as possible. I think sometimes they take that a bit too literal. As soon as they win a free kick, someone wants to spot it and play it, and that's not always the best option. I think they need to learn that there's times in games that you need to feel how the momentum of the game is, and is it right sometimes. I think almost robotically it's been so well coached into grab the ball, spot it, play, and sometimes you just think slow it down a little bit, and I think they're learning when to do that and when not to.
Right then, 4 more questions left. 2 football, 2 non. I suggest we do football first and then finish with a bit of fun. So Stewie, Foyster says, perhaps controversial this, but in my opinion, Chaplin's form has dropped off a cliff in recent times. What have you made of his last 6 weeks or so?
He's not been as good, I would say. Maybe dropping off the cliff, probably pushing it a little bit. I think both him and Harness probably have not, the goals for them came in the early parts of the season. Maybe both of them haven't been as effective in recent games. Maybe part of that is there isn't the same sort of players sort of pushing them from behind with Aluko injured, and that the rotation numbers aren't quite there in that position. But no, I think you know what you're going to get from Connor Chaplin. His moments of quality will come again, and he's someone that always gives every ounce of energy to the team. So I haven't got any huge concerns there with Connor Chaplin.
Okay, final football related question, Mike. Sweet Welsh Prince, Harvey Davis. If you haven't watched Game Day last night, go back and watch it because the lights go out on Harvey and Ross as they're doing their Game Day bit. And Ross, like the pro he is, keeps rolling as they walk towards a better lit area and continues. Anyway, Harvey says, I think Janoy Donasian, captain last night, is looking a little fatigued over the last few games and could do with a rest. Do you think we'll see KVY given a run at some stage? I can't recall McKenna resting Donasian at any point in the league, but that right side is looking a bit weak of late.
I think Janoy Donasian will play if Joy Donasian feels he's fit and well to play. And I think McKenna rates him. And I think he likes him. And I think he's a strong player. I think, you know, again, you're looking at characters, aren't you? Donasian's a strong character again. Is he struggling a little bit? I don't know. Maybe not. He's got Wes Burns in front of him. Has Wes Burns been as good this season as he was last? Maybe not up to now. But I mean, KVY he was out injured last night, wasn't he, or ill? I can't see Donasian being. I don't see any reason Donasian will suddenly just be dropped. I'd be surprised if he suddenly was. Maybe he's got. I mean, you've got the FA Cup game coming up. Maybe you might rest him for that. I mean, I don't. You know, maybe you might rest for something like that. But Donasian has been terrific for Ipswich Town this season. I think we forget again. This is a guy again. Go back a few years. Talk about character. You know, this is a guy who really has been under a lot at Ipswich Town over the years. You know, you can go on his back catalogue at Ipswich Town. It's not that great, you know, and he's worked really hard to get where he is. And I think he's done fantastically well. I think he'll be fine. And I think McKenna doesn't keep picking him because he doesn't rate him. I think
we talked about, you know, maybe Keogh needs to come into this defence. Maybe now Donasian talking about coming out. Maybe they haven't been at their absolute best. We talked about why Donasian's game, I think, has changed a little bit now with Davis getting forward so much on the left side. I think that's put the shackles a little bit more on Janoy Donasian. He had one sort of marauding run and cross last night, but in general, I think he hasn't got that same licence to get up in support of Wes Burns. But what it's taken away from Ipswich's right side has more than been made up for in terms of the extra balance they've got on the left side. So that's just something, as we said about Luke Wolfenden, you have to take, there's an equal and opposite reaction. You have to take the rough with the smooth, and that's part of it for me. The fact that Vincent Young is injured again means there's no one there sort of ready to jump in. I'm not a big fan of rotating defences. I can understand keeping your high-octane dynamic positions fresh, and when you've got sort of equal quality across that front line, I don't think there's much to separate those forward players. I can understand that. I don't like messing about with partnerships in central midfield and centre-backs and your defence in general. I think that's, you know, if it ain't broken, I don't think there's anything drastically broke, then don't fix it.
High octane and dynamic describes us perfectly, Stu. Great work. Right, two more questions. Amber Redmond wants to know, what would your dentists say about you? I suspect mine would say he's an excellent customer. Because I spent pretty much 2 months of my life at the dentist about this time last year when I was getting my flash veneers installed. And also I'm a big spender. So I'd imagine I might be on the Christmas card list this year. You got any thoughts, boys?
Did you spend a lot of money on your teeth then?
Yeah.
Is it like the sort of price of a small car?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you keep grinning. So I mean, you're obviously happy with them. I mean, you know, you obviously really look at you now. Look at you beaming. I don't blame you. Right, look at you. That's fantastic. They do look good. I must be honest. Now I've got a little story to tell about this, as you could probably imagine. I've always got a little story about
my teeth.
No, not about your teeth. About my teeth. Funny enough.
Okay.
I've just been to Spain, which was rather nice. And while I was in Spain, I got an abscess in my tooth. Would you believe? So what an extraordinary question from Amber. Yes, I did. And I had to find a Spanish dentist. Well, you try and find a Spanish dentist. But of course, me being, you know, sort of bilingual stroke, half Spanish stroke Mexican, I found one. And she was lovely. Sylvia, her name was. She didn't speak a word of English, but her assistant did. And they sorted me out with some tablets, and my abscess went within 4 days, 3 or 4 days, which was fantastic. So that's what my dentist. I had to actually phone my dentist in England to say, should I be taking these tablets? What with all my other problems? So you know, that's
what was the cause of the abscess, Mike? Was it too much sangria?
No, apparently not. Apparently, I got a little bit of steak stuck in my tooth from when I went to Morecambe. When a bit of raw steak. Apparently, I did ask my steak to be well done, but I didn't. I ended up eating a bit of raw stesteak, and it got stuck in my tooth and caused an abscess.
Everyone I've spoken to about that since has backed me up on the steak debate. And Mark, you'll 100% be on this.
Oh yeah, I've very strong
Yeah.
views on it. I don't think you should even get asked. I think it should just be served medium rare, and if you don't like it, you can leave the
Sorry,
restaurant.
Sorry, sir, you don't like steak, so we won't
Yeah.
be serving that to you.
You can have some corned beef instead. On you go. So you had an abscess, Stu. Any strong dentist stories you can bring into play here?
No. I just had the usual checkup where I go in, they read out the alphabet to you, and 2 minutes later you're 30 quid down or whatever it is these days. I think. Yeah,
70 quid's mine, mate. I'd get in, sit in the chair 5 minutes, bung, 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 bung. Yep, great. That'd be £70, please.
Yeah.
25 euros in Spain.
Is it? Excellent.
Was, yeah.
Right then, two more. Well, I've actually got two more questions. I'll ask you this one very quickly, Stu. Dan wants to know, you've been close to being locked in a number of stadiums so far this season, notably at Cambridge where they turn the lights out on you. If the worst were to happen, is there a preferred stadium to spend your night? Like a night at the museum sort of remix. Where would you be running, scampering around? It'd have to be like the new Wembley or new Tottenham ground, wouldn't it? One of the big ones, or not?
Yeah, probably in terms of pure comfort. Have we got access all areas?
I think so. Yeah, you can go anywhere.
Yeah, Wembley would be great, wouldn't it? And if we're talking, are we talking sort of purely to League One standards here?
Well, yeah. If where in League One would it be?
I don't know. Maybe just Portman Road. Actually, it's quite boring, but could have a proper snoop around, find all the hidden rooms, and
go behind.
Maybe have a route through Mark Ashton's drawers, find out some juicy gossip about contracts and things like that. That'd probably be most useful to the job, wouldn't it?
That would be tremendous. Actually, I think we should do that. Can we make that happen? Can you hide and maybe spend a night there? Well, something to be discussed. Maybe not on air. Mike, have you got a favourite stadium? You're a man who's covered many games, been many places, seen many things in your lengthy career, despite being so youthful. Have you got a favourite stadium? It doesn't have to be football. Is there a particular favourite place you've ever been?
Well, one of my favourite stadiums is actually Cradley Heath Speedway, which was stuck out in the Black Country, which is in the West Midlands, of course. Which, of course, many of you, it's not there anymore. Wonderful old stadium, fantastic. That and Hackney Stadium, East London, now an oldie superstore. But I mean, in its day, classic, wonderful Speedway stadium. Just wonderful football wise. Well, no, I went to Valencia. They're big. I forgot what it's called now. The Valencia ground, Mestalla or something. Mestalla, I think it's Mestalla. That's a fantastic ground. Wouldn't mind getting stuck in there, but it's pretty big. But I'm like Stu. I'd like to be stuck at Portman Road because I think there's some wonderful things go on there that we're not. I mean, all them lights that go on the grass after the game, Stu, all them heaters and stuff. How long do they stay on for? Do you wonder? I'd just like to be there till they're turned off. I mean, it must be fascinating. You could easily hide at Portman Road, couldn't you? After a game, I mean, no one would find you, would they? If you hid up somewhere.
You'd be flashing up. You'd be flashing up swear words on the advertising boards, wouldn't you? The big screen, just for fun.
Yeah, replace some of the artwork of just pictures of me and Andy, just subtly. See if anyone notices. The Morsian ball, big cutouts right outside the opposition tunnel. Yeah. We get a couple of them.
It can't be long, boys. It can't be long before you're up there, boys. I've got to be honest. Final question, Callum Pritchett. I like this, Callum. Who's, in terms of town, he says, who's the teacher's pet? Who's the class clown? Who are the best mates? Who are the lads with matching school bags? And who's the naughty kid in the back corner? Who's the one always forgetting their homework? So that's about 19 different questions there, Callum. So I'll go through them one at a time. Quick fire, please. Watto, who's teacher's pet at Ipswich Town, do you reckon?
Who's in the manager's ear? I don't know. Any thoughts? Who's parched in Peter Crouch terms?
Well, Morsey, you'd imagine, as captain, would have to be close to being teacher's pet, wouldn't he?
Yeah, you'd say skipper, but I'm not sure. I wouldn't go that far. Richard Keogh, we've seen pre-match. You see the coaches having a little powwow, and Keogh's always involved in that. I might say Richard Keogh there.
That's a good shout. Class clown. I think Wolfie's the obvious leader there. Would you agree with that?
Edmondson, I think. Yeah, between those two, yeah.
Best mates, Wes and Connor.
Yeah.
Ladapo and Edwards.
Yeah. So that would also probably cover matching school bags. Who's the naughty kid?
That would be Wolfenden.
Wolf, yeah. And also, finally, who's the one always forgetting their homework / not doing their homework? Wolfenden again.
Wolfenden. He's in quite a few of these, to be honest.
He is, yeah. Right then, that brings us to the end of Mailbag, friends. I hope you enjoyed it. Some good ground covered, both football and otherwise. And the only thing we have left to cover as we approach the hour mark on this pod, I hope you're enjoying it, is Charlton this weekend. And it seems ridiculous on a Wednesday afternoon. They've just played last night. Stu's barely got back in the door. I'm immediately going to ask him about Charlton on Saturday. But it's the only time we're going to have a chance to chat about it. We're not going to do another one of these this week, probably because of half-term, time off, etc. So we're not going to go into any great depth. I can't say, honestly, that I've looked in any great depth at Charlton at all. But there is one obvious talking point here, which is probably the main one we can talk about, is just how different it feels going to Charlton this season. Because the trip to Charlton last season was probably the nadir, the low point of the entire season. A very, very dark night at Charlton where obviously Town lost 2-0. They were really bad. There was disputes between fans and players. Big Totes, of course, got into it with fans. Really, really bad night on what was a pretty bad season. And yet this time round, it couldn't be more different, could it, in terms of feeling?
Yeah, I think that was the Cameron Humphreys league debut, wasn't it, for Ipswich as well? Came on quite late in that, so that shows you he's come full circle since then. Talk about sort of not being the right circumstances for him to kind of shine as a young lad compared to last night. But yeah, that was just after Paul Cook had gone, wasn't it? And everything just looked so confused and muddled, and I think everyone's heads had completely gone, players and fans alike, going into that game. When was that? I'm just having a look at the date. December 7th, less than a year ago. That's mad, isn't it? It already feels like an absolute lifetime ago. Scott Fraser, another little subplot there. Sounds like he's starting to come good at Charlton, starting to provide a few goals and assists for them. Played for Ipswich in that reverse fixture at the Valley last season. They've just started to hit a bit of form. I don't, as I say, same as you, I haven't massively looked into Charlton so far. They lost 2-0 at home to MK Dons last night. Ryan Innes, their big giant centre-half, got sent off, so he'll be suspended, which is a plus point for Ipswich. But prior to that, they'd won 3 in a row. They'd beaten Exeter 4-2 at home. They'd beaten Shrewsbury 1-0 away. They put 3 goals past someone else. I'll look that up as we look. So, yeah, maybe some signs that they might get them. Portsmouth, they beat 3-0, so that's obviously a big result. So, yeah, interesting game. I'm being interested to do a bit more of a deep dive into Charlton over the next couple of days and see what's in store for Ipswich.
Scott Fraser narrative, I like it. Mike, if someone had said to you after that game last year that in less than a year, Town will be going to Charlton, second in the league, 14-point gap to 7th place, and with an entirely different feeling, would you have believed them?
No, of course you wouldn't. I mean, it's been extraordinary, hasn't it? I mean, what a turnaround, as Stu said, in less than a year. I mean, I think I went to the game the year before. I think they drew 0-0 when Cook was there. That seems a lifetime away now. Yeah, I mean, it's been an extraordinary turnaround. The feel-good factor is what it's all been about. But not only that, they've actually got the results on the pitch now, and they're getting them consistently. Look, the fans and the team are all in tune. I mean, this is part of it. There's celebration at the end, even if Town lose, that even they lost to Lincoln, you know, all that, or dropped 2 points at Sheffield Wednesday. Fans are still appreciating hugely what's going on at Portman Road, and that's all they ever want. And you know, they want to know they've got a group of people, a team of people who are giving it the 100%, which they are. Yes, extraordinary turnaround, isn't it? Going to be a tough game Saturday, mind you. Never liked going to a team who've just lost 2-0 to, I think MK must have been bottom or second bottom. So they're going to be, although I think Stu's right, Innes being suspended, if he is suspended, which I assume he will be, that'll be a big loss for them because he's a key player for them. But yeah, what a fantastic turnaround inside a year. Incredible. Wonderful.
Charlton away is always fun as well. A sheer number of Ipswich fans that go to that game as well, just down the road. Always sort of evokes memories of the Noel Hunt late winner in the playoff season of 14-15. Really looking forward to that. Every Ipswich game now feels like it means something, like it's an occasion, home or away. 1,700 again there at Port Vale last night, which is fantastic. We keep saying it, and yeah, you know, win, lose or draw, there'll be more dropped points along the way. But you know, we called it very early on. They look pretty nailed on for top 6 now, don't they? And it's just a case of whether they can sustain this top 2 push and just enjoy the journey, because this is a team, this is a group to be proud of, that people feel connected to, that people feel proud to support at the moment. And these you know, these sort of moments in time don't come along too often. So hopefully people are just sort of enjoying it. I know there's been a few sort of questions about, oh, so-and-so's form has dropped and some of the wins haven't been that convincing at the moment. Don't get yourself sort of too caught up on some of you know, picking too many negatives out of this at the moment. It's never going to be perfect, but so much of this is good on and off the pitch at the moment. So I think we should try and enjoy it as much as we can.
It's a real shame I have to actually say anything after that, Stu, because that would have been the perfect way to end the show. A nice little soliloquy from Stuart Watson. Friends, is there anything else to mention? We've done just over an hour, which is pretty much spot on for a podcast. It's been excellent to have Mike Bacon with us. A rare cameo appearance. Clearly, he's by far the highest paid, so we have to limit his appearances. Anything else to mention, boys?
No. Thank you very much, Heath. As I said, it's been nice to be back here. And as I said, Stu's absolutely right. British fans enjoy this ride, because as somebody who's been following town for a long time, these seasons don't come around very often. And this has potentially, and it's still only potentially, of course, got the opportunity to be one of those seasons that hopefully you might be talking about in 10 years' time, when you say, do you remember that year when that town went up and we're on the Cornhill and Kieran McKenna was he dropped the League One trophy on top of the mayor's head, and things like all these sort of funny things that might happen in the years to come. I'm lucky to have seen quite a few of them already, or the few that have taken place. So let's hope come May we're doing it again.
Ed Sheeran played his guitar on top of Portman Road on the roof, as we all as Town won the league by 25 points. Fantastic.
Yes. Then did a gig on Fleetwood Sands on the last day of the season. Fantastic.
These things may happen. Right then, friends, that's been this week's podcast. As I say, I don't think we're going to be back with you in the flagship mode anyway this week. There'll be another fan social tomorrow night to keep you up to speed and also look ahead to the Charlton game. Please remember to support our sponsors, Manscaped. Use the code KOA at manscaped.com for 20% off and free delivery. All the excellent club are there. Mike, I'm sure in your absence from the show, you've been manscaping every day.
I did a little bit this morning, funnily enough. I won't tell you where.
Excellent. That leaves a little mental image there for leave the listeners with and the viewers. And also support us across all our social media, Kings of Anglia on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. It's Wednesday afternoon. We're going to start building up now to Charlton. The boys will be there this weekend. Enjoy the game if you're going. Have a great weekend. Follow it with us if you're not, and we will speak to you again next bloody ruddy time. Have a good one, everyone.